Hello everybody, my name is X Factor, and I'm just living the Rebel dream. This is some early footage from the Star Wars Battlefront beta on the Rebel side before most people figured out the power of the orbital strike and how important it was to pay attention to your uplinks to get the most bombers up, to maximize the exposure in the AT-ATs, to bring the pain train. So this is back in the beta when the Rebels would get smacked around 99.9% of the time, but we're going to put some pressure on the Imperial scum. And during the video, we're going to talk about two different things. EA's reporting some insane numbers of the beta, and I'm actually going to give my thoughts and impressions as I capture an orbital strike right there, which means GG as long as this thing works properly. One thing as I pick the guy off through the bubble boy as I eat a cyclic rifle is the orbital strikes in the AT-ATs and the handheld sometimes bugged out. You'd click an area, you'd see the big blue circle, but then it'd go off in the hills someplace, which simply did not make sense. In the AT-AT, it'd freeze there. You could not move it around, and you're simply done. Just blew your cycle on the AT-AT. As talked about a second ago, EA has released some numbers. Over 9.5 million players have played the Star Wars Battlefront beta, making the biggest in EA history. That's 1.6 billion minutes. That's enough time to watch the original trilogy 4.2 million times. That's absurd. The question is, what do people think? What have people absorbed? What have people reflected on? I'm going to go over some of my thoughts in this video as we talk about some of these insane numbers that EA has posted. Most of you guys know I'm a big Battlefield player, going way back in the history of the Battlefield franchise. But I'm going to talk about the recent two betas with DICE, Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. They were a hot mess. The betas were unstable, client and server side crashes every couple minutes, not to mention stretch necks and crazy bugs, people dying 10-15 feet around corners with the hit registration. And then the game launched for Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Absolutely horrid with the stability issues. Battlefield 3 wasn't stable for 4, maybe 5 months. Battlefield 4 wasn't stable for 6+ months. Not to mention the nightmare hit registration, which has gotten cleaned up thanks to DICE LA and all the improvements and balance changes they've made to the game. I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I firmly believe that DICE LA was a saving grace to the Battlefield franchise because it was really circling the drain after BF3 and its horrible launch, and then to repeat it with Battlefield 4. Of course, when Andrew Wilson came in from EA, the developers started taking an open, honest, and transparent approach to the gaming communities, which is awesome. It seems to be carrying through with Battlefront. So why do I bring all this up? Well, to get to where we're going in the future, we need to know where we've been in the past. That's horrible stability problems and all kinds of bugs. I really didn't see that with the Star Wars Battlefront beta. It was stable. I had one crash and I pulled the report, and it might have been due to my recording software, one of the settings that I had. And there weren't server dumps, massive server dumps. I know some of the servers had problems for Xbox One and PS4, but when the BF3 and BF4 betas rolled around for DICE, everybody had problems. I don't care if you were playing it on the Nintendo 64 or the original Nintendo, you were dumping out of the servers. Probably client side and server side problems, both. So here you see us trying to maintain this as we got 4 bombers up, and there's just simply too much pressure. So I feel pretty good about the stability of Battlefront. It seems stable, and that's Frostbite maturing. We saw the stability in Hardline. Hardline actually had a really, really stable launch, which is a breath of fresh air coming from the Frostbite engine. So I'm looking for the same when Battlefront launches on November 17th. So that's kind of a good thing. Another hot topic among a lot of gamers and myself is skill gap in Star Wars Battlefront. And it's different than other DICE games. In previous DICE games in the Battlefield franchise, you would have to tap, fire, burst, not strafe to maximize your accuracy, definitely not jump and shoot. But in Star Wars Battlefront, there is no penalty to your accuracy, even while jump shooting, whether it's with the cyclic rifle or one of the fast rate of fire blasters, it does not matter. You can bunny hop all day and just drop people across the map. But it doesn't mean there's not a skill gap. There's always a skill gap if it's a first or third person shooter. It's always going to be about awareness, your positioning, and then of course managing your cooldown on your blaster, aka reload. If you time that up, you're only going to have a split second of downtime, which is awesome because you can just get back on mouse button 1. Do you roll your shoulders in third person? Are you looking down while jumping? Are you taking advantage of the topography? Are you setting yourself up for a massive flank? Are you cleaning up a lane that was lost and re-pushing out? Are you playing the mind games with your personal shield or some of the battle pickups? I can't tell you how many cool different things you could do with the personal shield, baiting people into situations that benefit you. There's always going to be stuff that constitutes a skill gap in a shooter. While this is more casual, like Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, which is not necessarily a bad thing because I enjoy Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare and I enjoyed the Star Wars Battlefront beta. The next thing is balance. A lot of people talking about balance issues. Well, first, there's only a handful of weapons, cards, and power-ups in the beta. You guys have to remember, there is a lot more coming. Now, any first-person shooter or third-person shooters who are about to drop this hot orbital strike and send this AT-AT to its grave is going to have balance issues. It's just the nature of the beast. The question is, can DICE minimize these and quickly? So what I'm looking for when this game hits the market November 17th is how active is DICE on patching? In previous games, Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, they were really slow. Really slow with very obvious things. I'd love to see a couple patches within the first couple weeks. Show some commitment to the community. Say, hey, we recognize that these are issues. Should the cyclic rifle hit for 90 in the body across the map? Probably not. Are there some star cards that aren't in the game that are pretty freaking strong? Yes. How do they balance that stuff? Of course, it's got to get to the masses and get out to the public before they really start messing with that. But again, if it's a first-person shooter, a third-person shooter, if it's got guns or lasers that go pew-pew, it's gonna have balance issues. The question is, can they minimize that as I kind of roll my shoulder down to get a better view in third person? One of the major complaints I have is the lack of settings in the menu. And it doesn't matter if it's gameplay or if it's configuration settings. So there is one vehicle sensitivity which your turrets are married to. So if you get a pickup turret or if you're one of the stationary turrets, if you don't want that going ape shit, for me, because I play at 1800 DPI, I had to set that at 1 or 2%, and that really hurts you when you go get in an air vehicle or something like an AT-ST, and then that sensitivity is simply unbearable. So I'd like to see a better system, or maybe then break up some of the sensitivities, kind of like they've done in Battlefield 4. The next thing, and this might be controlled by Disney and the actual Star Wars franchise, is there's no music slider. Of course, you hear the epic music cues when the heroes come in and certain things happen. That's a good indicator, but you can see a big red dot in the map when you see vehicles or heroes. It'd be nice to kind of turn that down just a little bit because it is overbearing sometimes. Another issue I have with Star Wars Battlefront is DICE does vehicles and they do them rather well. But there's a problem with AT-ATs and AT-STs. And this might be a balance thing, so kind of hold on for a second, let me explain this. When you get in an AT-AT as an Imperial, especially in the start of the map, if you think about the one on the left, as I'm kind of giving it to Dad from behind, that sounds really bad, but I want them points though. If you look to the right of the map, your crosshair might be true. Of course, there's going to be drop in lead that you always need to consider, and that's a small skill gap item, as there should be. But then when you look to the middle of the map, or to the far left, you have to raise your crosshair by 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet above the rebels. Which, again, is that a balance thing, or is that a boo-boo? I'm all for there being lead and drop, and it being variable depending on which weapon you're using on the AT-AT. But the question is, should there be that much difference? I mean, it's absolutely nuts. And then you get further in with the AT-ATs, and those positions change. There's certain parts on this specific map that you're in the AT-AT, and the left side of the crosshair becomes more true to its true placement, where the shots are actually going, if you consider the lead and the drop. And then the right side of the map is all wonky. So it'd be interesting to see what they say as I eat the cyclic rifle from behind, but I really find it super annoying. And again, is that a simple balance thing for the AT-AT, so it just doesn't smash everybody into oblivion? And the next set of complaints is the partner system is absolutely abysmal. The party system does not work. It took Jack Frags, Level Cap, Matimio, and Jet 45 plus minutes to actually get into a Walker Assault. There'd be spots open in a server because one person would join in, but then it'd put the other 3 or 4 of us in an absolutely empty server. just broken. Not to mention there is no VoIP in this game, and there's no browser. It's 2015 DICE. Are we going backwards or are we going forwards? Do you want to build communities or do you want to break them apart? So here's a question for you. How many Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker spawns do you think there were in the limited Star Wars Battlefront beta? How about 5.9 million for Dad, aka Darth Vader, and 5.9 million for his son Luke Skywalker? There's only a difference about 34,000. And how many people were choked out in the cold until they were blue in the face? 1.379 million, which is just absurd. And believe it or not, there were 783,000 walkers destroyed. I think the Rebels finally got the hang of that. If people wouldn't have figured out how to use the orbital strikes or how important it was to stay on your uplinks, this might have been a much smaller number. And 6 million people got to rank 5. It didn't take much to get rank 5, which is max in beta, but it happened. So that's well over half the people getting to rank 5. Were people that attached to the beta? Did they have that much fun? Here's the crazy thing. There's really only 2 multiplayer maps and modes. That's it. And I somehow managed to log around 26 or more hours. Simply couldn't get enough. Usually I'd be bored out of my mind if it was just 2 maps and 2 modes. But it was a lot of fun playing Star Wars Battlefront Beta. I actually really look forward to the launch. And here's why. Hardline was stable at launch. That's Frostbite. That's EA. That's Visceral, and a little bit of DICE in there. Andrew Wilson came in as the CEO of EA and really opened up the lines of communication between community and developers, hoping for honesty and transparency. And we've gotten that with Battlefield 4 the second half, and we've gotten that with Battlefront so far. The questions are this: will there be enough to keep you interested? Remember, we only had 2 maps and 2 modes. I've done an EA event where I played different modes and I played different maps, and I had an absolute blast. I think that's why I played the beta so much, because I know what's coming, and I know that I'm going to have quite a bit of fun when this game launches. My question is this: what red flags do you guys have? Have they kind of been taken care of with this beta? The stability, the server issues with the PS4, the Xbox One, the lack of them on the PC, them fixing those on Xbox One and PS4. What do you guys think? This is supposed to be EA's big title of the year, and there are rumors that there are calls for Battlefront to sell 10 million units through the holiday season. What do you guys think about that? As always, thanks for watching, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you guys soon.